Hello, 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 my sisters in ministry out there. It is Reverend Jocelyn here, and I want to welcome you to the Sister Start Your Ministry Hour. I am so excited that you are here. I have been praying about today. I have been envisioning our time together today. And I want you to know that we are going to grow together. We're going to learn together. We might laugh together. Maybe we might even cry together. But it's all about helping you to answer your call to ministry. Now, as you are tuning in live, for those of you who are watching right now, I want you to do me a huge favor and put your name in the chat so I know who is here. When I say chat, I'm used to Zoom, but put your name in the comments so I know who's watching live. And anytime I'm saying something that resonates with you, go ahead and comment on it. And we're going to talk and have a dialogue even while we are on social media. So let me know who is in the house. Now, for our time together for this hour, week after week, my goal is to equip you both spiritually for the road ahead as you're answering that call to ministry or building your kingdom business. But in addition to that, I want to provide you with some practical strategies that you can implement to help you to not only start your ministry, but to build and scale a ministry that can last. And so we're really glad that you're here. I see the sisterhood collaborations in the house. Welcome, welcome. Anyone who is also watching live, let me know your name. You can even represent your city. I'm just glad that you are here. Now, I also want to encourage you, if you know of another sister who is called to ministry, maybe they're called to be a Christian coach, maybe they're called to be a Christian author, maybe they're called to the ministry of healing, whatever they're called to, I want you to reach out to 2 to 3 sisters right now, just like right now, and just text them, say, hey, sis, Reverend Jocelyn's live. She's talking about building your ministry. You should tune in. Don't just keep all this information to yourself. Share it with a sister. I see some people in the chat right now. Michelle Webb, welcome. Angela, welcome. I see Hobson, welcome. Minister Pat from Louisiana in the house. Welcome, welcome, welcome. I'm so glad that you're here, ladies. Okay, so as we are getting into the topic at hand, I want to talk about ministry and what this looks like, because one of the things that I've heard from many sisters who I've worked with who have been called, they would say something like, Reverend Jocelyn, I'm not called to be a reverend. I'm not going to seminary school. And I'm like, sis, you don't have to be a reverend to start your ministry. You don't have to necessarily go to seminary school to build a ministry. God is calling each of us to build a ministry in our own right. And what does ministry even mean? Well, when we think about what ministry is service to God and to others on Christ's behalf, right? And ministry can take place in the church walls, of course, but it also can take place beyond the church walls. It could take place in the Zoom room. It could take place in the boardroom. It could take place doing street outreach. It could take place in a nonprofit youth center. Wherever God is calling you right now, I want you to know that it can be ministry. And I want you to really be thinking about the unique gifts that you have right now in this season and how God is calling you to do something with those gifts. I often say that when it comes to our call, we look at our gifts plus a need that we see, plus anything that we're passionate about. When we have gifts plus a need plus our passion, sisters, that equals purpose-driven work. And that's where God is leading us to in this season, to do purpose-driven work. When we look at the scripture, the word of God, John 15:16, it says, you did not choose me, but I chose you and appointed you, sister, so that you might go and bear fruit. Ooh, bear fruit. Fruit that will last. So that means, sisters, that when it comes to fruit that will last, that could be a book. If you write that book lives well beyond you. That book goes into rooms that you will never go into. That's fruit that will last. Or maybe it's a mentoring program that God is calling you to in this season to help the younger generation who needs the help right now, might I add. So maybe it's a mentoring program. Maybe it's a healing ministry that God is calling you to help break generational curses. Maybe it's a coaching program. The fruit that will last that you are called to in this season, sister, that is legacy work. And I want you to put in the comments, I'm called to leave a legacy. And when we think about what God is calling us to, fruit that will last, so that whatever you ask in my name, the Father will give unto you. I ask you today, what are you asking God to do through you in this season? What are you asking God to birth through you, through your ministry? I want to know, is it a book? Is it a podcast? Is it a coaching program? Is it a nonprofit? Because I know you're dreaming about something. But for some of us, we've been struggling to get started. And I want you to understand that in this season, now more than ever, people are praying for your ministry. Someone right now is on their knees asking for someone to help them in an area, whether it's helping them out of an abusive relationship, helping them because they're struggling with thoughts of suicide, helping them because they have gone through a painful divorce or lost a spouse. And you, sister, are the answer to that person's prayer. But for whatever reason, you have been maybe playing small. Maybe you've been procrastinating. Maybe, sis, you've been hiding because you've been ashamed of your story. I don't know what's been holding you back in this season. But as you listen to my voice right now, I want you to understand that it's time. It is time. It is time for you to take that next step. And sometimes, sisters, when God is calling us to take the next steps, how it looks is not always crystal clear. We can find ourselves in a place where we're like, okay, God, I know I'm called, but what does this look like? Does anybody have that question where it's like, okay, I'm called to start a ministry, but like, what do I build? I remember having that same problem when I was first called to start my ministry. I remember clear as day, God was calling me to leave my full-time job. I was working at my church as a director of a nonprofit. And I felt God tugging at me saying, okay, you served, within the church walls for over a decade. Now it's time for you to step out and start your own. Now, mind you, ladies, I was scared. I was scared. And I really didn't have clarity on how this thing looked. And so I went to seminary school searching for answers. I was, telling other people, I'm like, hey, God is calling me to start this ministry, but I don't know what it looks like. It literally felt like for 2 years while I was discerning, God was giving me the silent treatment. I mean, I felt like God was ghosting me as it relates to the answers that I was seeking for my ministry. Very frustrating. And so I remember one day I ran into the old youth minister of my church at a wedding reception. We were in the bathroom together, washing hands. And she asked me, she said, Jocelyn, how you doing? And I couldn't even pretend. I was like, listen, I am so frustrated because I know that God is calling me to start my ministry, but I don't have clarity about my next steps. I feel like I'm a failure. I feel frustrated and blah, 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 blah. And she was like, listen, I need you to breathe, Jocelyn. Because I was hyperventilating in the bathroom. She's like, God orders your steps, not your leaps. And when she said that, I was like, oh my goodness. Okay. Because I've been a planner. I really wanted to have clarity about the A to Z as it relates to what God was doing through my ministry. But it doesn't always work like that. Sometimes God gives you your next step, your next most faithful step, like showing up to a webinar or showing up to an event, taking a course, reaching out to someone. Whatever that next step may be, he might just be waiting for you to say yes to that to see if you're being obedient. And then after you take that step, he'll reveal to you the next step. It's kind of like driving in the fog. If you've ever driven in the fog before, you know that you can't see all the way down the road. Sometimes you could just only see about 10, 15 feet ahead of you. And so, you drive slowly. And as you drive a little further, you see a little further down the road. It's like the steps are being eliminated before you. So the same thing applies when it comes to this work. It is a faith walk, sis. And I want you to be thinking about what is the next step that God is calling you to right now in this season. And I want you, if you have clarity about what that next step is, go ahead and put it in the chat. I'm checking the chat out right now. I see S. Lawson. She says, I'm called to lead young women. I love that. Okay. And I see Angela says business ministry that includes coaching and writing. That's right. Okay. And we witness every day. I love that. And so when we think about where God is calling us to in this season, sometimes we don't get an answer right away. Sometimes we had an answer, but we ignored it 2 years ago. And God's like, I already told you to write the book. You just sitting on it. My answer's still the same, and I'm just waiting for you to move, So, not sure I'm talking to right now, but we want to think about that. But as we are seeking God in this season about our next step, I also want to point out that for some of us, we have had some challenges in this season. Now, in real time, if you're watching this live, you know that we're in the middle of a government shutdown. Some people have been furloughed. Some people have lost their job, and they're sitting here, and it's a stressful time. It's a stressful time. But this is what I have learned. Even during these times where we're being pressed, when we're under a lot of stress, it might seem like a major setback. And yes, I'm not minimizing the fact that it's uncomfortable, it's difficult. But what if in this season, what you're going through right now is actually a setup? What if it's a setup? I think about a story that my dear sister, Dr. Michelle McKinney-Hammond, talks about. And she talks about how she got started. Now, let me just give you like the 411, if you don't know who she is, on how dynamic this woman is. Like, she is a powerhouse author and international speaker. But it didn't start off like that. She had a career in advertising and marketing and all that stuff, and she was doing her thing. But there was a moment that happened in her life where she got into this car accident and everything just shut down. I don't know, for you might have a moment where, again, you lost your job. You're in it right now. Or you've had a health issue and it just stopped you, shut you down. Or maybe something's happened where you've gone through a divorce. You've gone through something like a loss of a spouse. Something has happened that's set you down. And during the season, when you're going through it, it is painful. But again, going back to what I was saying, is it a setback or a set up? And when we think about what happened with Dr. Michelle, before she was Dr. Michelle McKinney-Hammond, she talked about being in her hospital bed and she's recovering. And it's like, it sucks when you're someone who is really used to being productive and moving and shaking. And you're just like, oh, I'm sitting here. I can't do anything. Right. And so she had a girlfriend who said, well, I mean, you're sitting here. You can't, work right now. So what about revisiting that book that you have been talking about writing for the longest? And, she said, okay, that I will. And so she started writing her book, What to Do Until Love Finds You. And she finished that book project. She submitted it. It got picked up. She published it. And lo and behold, God touched that thing, and she became instantly a best-selling author. It blew the minds of the publisher because they hadn't seen anything like that before. And it went from one book to over 40 books that she has written over the years, now becoming an international best-selling author and speaker, well sought after speaker. She travels the world doing her work. And I want to read a quote to you. As she appeared on Essence and TBN, she said, "God had to sit me down so I could hear from him. That accident changed my direction. It was the moment he gave me my real assignment." Ooh, wow. That is amazing, right? And I think sometimes God has to literally sit us down to give us the real assignment because we're so busy. We're here, there, everywhere. I don't know who I'm talking to right now, but sometimes we got to get set down so that we can do what God is calling us to do, to find our real assignment. And that process could be very painful. And I also want you to know, when it comes to the ministry that God is calling us to, sometimes the ministry is birthed from our deepest pain. I don't know how many mothers we have here who are watching live. If you're a mom, let me know in the chat if you've ever given natural birth to a child. You know, I hear, because I haven't had a physical birth myself, but I hear is one of the most excruciating pains that you can have. I mean, real pain. And, you know, when we go through that process as women of labor, pushing, the contractions, it feel like it could just take you out. You know, at the time, it's extremely painful. But when that baby comes out, don't you know? I see you, Darnisha. I see you, sis. Once that baby comes out, isn't it worth it? Don't you say, "Oh, my cute little baby, I love you so much." And some of us do it again and again and again, have more kids, because we can forget about the pain once we give birth to something so beautiful. And, you know, I think about not just the birth of a baby, but the birth of our ministry. Some of you, ladies, are overdue. Like, your baby is ready. It's ready to be birthed. But in order for the baby to come out, sometimes we go through seasons that's just so painful. I think about my personal experience. I had been starting to build my ministry. I started my ministry as a simple blog, and it developed into a book and into a podcast. And then I started running local Christian trauma healing groups. And eventually those trauma healing groups developed into a national Christian trauma healing ministry. And God was really elevating me, sisters. It was amazing to see what God was doing. But at that time, I also, while my ministry was beginning to take off, I found myself in a very unhealthy relationship, an abusive marriage. And as I was going through that process of navigating this situation that I never thought I'd find myself in. And I'm saying this from a place of transparency, sisters, because sometimes when we are building what God is calling us to, we have to understand we have an enemy, and he's going to try to do everything in his power to abort what God is trying to birth in your life. And for me, I had completely idolized the idea of being married. I mean, I was almost 40, and I was sitting here like saying, God, like, where's my Prince Charming? I don't know if any of you grew up on Disney like I did, but I like idolized the idea of being married. And so when I finally did say I do, you know, I ignored, some red flags. And I'm in the situation, and at this time I'm already Rev Jocelyn, and I'm public. I'm teaching classes on trauma healing, and I find myself in this abusive marriage. And I was watching and experiencing this, and thinking to myself, I don't even know how I'm going to be able to keep my ministry afloat, because I felt like I was being fake in front of people as I was dealing with all this stuff in the background that felt like it was going to destroy me. And so I made a decision to walk away from my marriage. And it was it actually, I think, was the most difficult decision I ever made in my life. And I felt like it broke me. And at the same time of walking away from my marriage, I walked away from my church home of 16 years. I walked away from my home. The grief was extremely overwhelming. But here's what I learned from this. Even though I experienced some symptoms of PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder, I also realized that we can experience post-traumatic growth. And when I tell you, God kept me through it all, and I had the opportunity to walk out the healing that I teach others through counseling, through leaning into my faith like never before, by joining support groups. And over time, I was able to reauthor my story, reclaim my voice. And from the pain that I went through, an arm of my ministry was birthed, ladies. Because here's the thing. I had studied domestic violence in textbooks. I literally took courses on that. But until I had experienced it, I didn't know what dynamics of power and control and manipulation and gaslighting and how it felt to walk on eggshells. I couldn't really fully understand what it looked like to sit across the table from a survivor and say, sister, I get it. I understand why you keep going back. I went back to my ex 7 times. I was that statistic. They say it takes 7 times to leave an abusive relationship. I was that. I know what it's like to walk in shame. And now I'm able to support other survivors. I speak across the country about domestic violence. This part of my ministry was birthed from my pain. And that's right, as Lawson, that was a distraction. And it also felt like a setback. But for me, now that I'm on the other side, it was really a setup. Because what happened? I can't stand this little flyaway that I got all going on here. But what happened, sisters, was I had to move back in with my mom. I had to move back in with my mother at the age of 40. And this is coming from someone who was very used to being extremely independent. And so for me, moving back into my childhood room, it seemed like a major setback. It seemed like I was going backwards. But here's the thing. God is so good. The scripture talks about all things working together for those who love the Lord. Even though I'm not saying, hear me, I'm not saying the abuse that I went through was good, but I'm saying that even the terrible things that we go through, the hard stuff that we experience, God can use, because God did allow for me to move back into the home with my mom at the perfect time. Because Jocelyn here can sometimes get tunnel visioned. I don't know any of you struggle with that, but I could get so focused on my calling, my work, my ministry, that sometimes I don't spend the time that I need to with family. And after my father passed 3 years ago, I had so much regret for being so caught up in all the hustle and bustle and not making enough time for him in his latter years, because I was one-track mind. And so with me going back home due to the divorce, having to go back home metaphorically to revisit some of the wounds of my childhood. And don't get me wrong, I didn't have a traumatic childhood, but there were certain things that I had gone through that caused me to make certain decisions. There was some wounded child in me that I tolerated some crap in relationships that I shouldn't have tolerated. And so going back home forced me to sit down and deal with myself. But also the setup was I was able to spend time with my mother, who now is 81 years old, to support her, be there with her while she was supporting and caring for me. And it's such a blessing that I'm grateful for, that I wouldn't have done on my own. Why am I telling you these stories? Why am I sharing with you Michelle's story of being in a car accident and that birthing her like author career, or me going through what I went through and it birthing my domestic violence ministry? I'm sharing these stories with you because nothing that you go through in life is wasted. And I want you to put that in the comments for me right now. Nothing is wasted. And when it comes to your ministry, for some of you, the most transformative ministry that you're going to build is going to be birthed from your pain. I want you to know that. It's going to be birthed through what you have gone through, because you are not only a survivor, you are a thriver. Sister, you're so resilient. You've gone through so much, but what you've gone through is not just for you. It's for the people who you are called to serve, who are your assignment right now. I need you to hear my voice. I need you to understand that some people are assigned to you, and they are waiting for you to answer your call. I remember having a conversation with a sister a couple months ago, and she too had found herself in an abusive relationship. And she had seen my story. I had recently became public about what I had gone through and what I experienced. And she called me to tell me what she had gone through. She was in tears. She said, no one will believe me that she is going through this abusive relationship. And I said, no, I believe you. I believe you. And you're going to be okay. And we began to talk about resources and support. And I encouraged her and I prayed for her. And a couple months later, she's out of that relationship. She's doing so well. I'm so happy for her. But here's what I didn't know. As she was thanking me and sharing with me about her, where God is leading her and what God is doing right now in this season, she was just thanking me. I'm like, sister, I get it. No problem. It's no problem at all. It's my pleasure. She said, no, you don't understand. When I have reached out to you that day for help in tears, I had a plan to take my life. But you being there, you sharing your story, it gave me hope. Ladies, when she said that, it was a reminder of how real this thing is. For some of us, we are hiding behind our stories because we're carrying a lot of shame. Maybe we feel guilty for what we've gone through. Maybe we felt like our voice was taken from us. Maybe we think no one will care. But instead of hiding behind your story, I'm encouraging you to stand on your story, because someone needs to hear it. And what you survived could be a lifeline to someone else. And I don't know why I'm sharing this right now. None of this is scripted, but the Holy Spirit is leading me to say this because for some of you, you have such a powerful testimony, but no one knows it because you've been the best kept secret. For some of you, it's like you in the witness protection program, sis. It's like, why are you hiding? Why are you hiding? Because in the light, when God is able to use you as a light for others, when we yield our story, when we reauthor our story, when we reclaim the narrative, when we rewrite the narrative, the narrative that says, I'm damaged, when we reauthor that to say, I'm redeemed, That narrative that says that no one will want me anymore. Oh, we re-author that, we remix that to say that I am chosen and I'm beloved. You know, I think about the Japanese art of kintsugi. I don't know how many of you are familiar with that. But when it comes to kintsugi, it's the practice of taking all these broken pieces, metals, and scraps that most people will be like, oh, you can't use that. This is no good. Throw it in the trash. But they said, we're going to pull those pieces together and we're going to infuse it with gold. And we're going to build this beautiful piece of pottery that's considered a luxury piece of art. When it comes to what God is trying to do through your life, He wants to reclaim. He wants to take these broken pieces, stuff that you feel like nothing could be done with this. What people told you, nothing could be done with this. Say, God says, I'm going to use it. Give it to me. Give it to me. I'm going to put these pieces together. I'm going to infuse it with gold. I'm going to help you to build a ministry that's going to save lives. So I want you to get what I'm saying to you, sister. Again, this theme of nothing being wasted. You know, I see a comment in the chat. I appreciate this. I sometimes feel I share too much. I can't help it. I'm so thankful for His deliverance. Yes. Yes. You know, here's the thing. Sometimes when God brings us through something, we can't help but share what God has brought us through. Because we know the sleepless nights. We know the tears we cried. We know it's but the grace of God that we are here. And so, yes, we shout. Yes, we share. Yes, we let people know. We proclaim what God has done through us to be a lifeline for others. So no, don't hold back. Let God use your testimony to be a light. Now, as we are moving forward in the Sister Start Your Ministry Hour, every week, I'm going to do a teaching like this. I want you to set your timers for 6:30 Central every week. And if you haven't already followed me and subscribed, I'm going to, make sure you have all my social media channels. You can subscribe at Rev Jocelyn on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, and LinkedIn. And with that, I'm going to also be providing you with resources to help you to grow and start your ministry. So if you haven't already followed me on Facebook and Instagram, I encourage you to do so, again, at Rev Jocelyn. And I want to make sure that you get my ministry launch starter kit. This is a digital kit that I put together that's designed to walk you through the process of growing and scaling your ministry. So to get this kit, you can do one of two things. You can, again, follow me on Instagram or Facebook at Rev Jocelyn and send me a direct message with the word start. And then I will reply right back with the ministry launch starter kit, a link to get it. Or you can visit sisterstartyourministry.com. There, you'll actually find out more information about my book, Sister Start Your Ministry. I have a workbook. I got a planner. I have a whole bunch of just good stuff there for you. But at the top, you'll see a link to download this free digital kit to help you to grow your ministry. Okay. Another thing that I want you to know, week after week, I want to answer your questions. I want to answer your questions as it relates to things that you're struggling with as it relates to your ministry. So you can submit your questions at revjocelyn.com/questions. And when submitting those questions to me, if you submit it by 5 p.m. on Friday, the week of that live, then I will bring your questions up live. I'll give you a little shout out on this show and we'll talk about your question, because I know as I was starting my ministry, I had questions. I had questions about, okay, what's the direction of my ministry? Okay, how do I sustain myself financially for my ministry? Because y'all, I left my full-time job with benefits to go full-time into building my ministry. So I had to figure out, how sister was going to eat and pay her mortgage. These are questions, right? So maybe you have questions on, okay, how do I set my ministry up? Should it be an LLC or should it be a nonprofit? Or how should I, advertise or get the word out about my ministry? How do I get support or volunteer? I don't know what questions you have, but I want to encourage you to bring them to the show so we can answer it, because whatever questions you have, sister, I promise you somebody else got that same question. So maybe you could just be brave enough to bring that question forward. So first question that I often get from people is, Rev Jocelyn, I know I'm called, but how do I know what type of ministry I'm supposed to start? Does anybody else have that question who's watching right now? Like they're saying like, okay, like I'm called, but called to what? Like who are the people who I'm supposed to serve? I want to help everybody. I get that a lot too, because many of us have such a big heart, but we can't help everybody in the world. There are particular people who are our assignment, and that's who we want to make sure that we speak to. So there's some questions that I typically offer people to ask themselves when they are discerning their focus for their ministry. First question I like to ask is, what cause burdens you? I'm going to say that again. What cause burdens you? When we think of a burden, it's that pain that we feel. It's the heaviness that we feel more so when we hear about a cause. Like maybe you are watching TV one day and something comes on the news and you're like, man, someone needs to do something about this. I'm like so upset or bothered by this. Well, maybe, sister, that someone is you. Think about that. I remember hearing about this young boy from my church. His name is Josiah. I remember hearing his mom and dad driving him in the car. They're in the car. He's in the back seat. He was 8 years old. And at the time, as he's in the back, he's seeing homeless people. And he's telling his parents at the stoplight, we need to give them something. Like, we have to give them something. And if he had food, he would want to give them his sandwich. He would want to give them anything he had to support them. And if the light changed before he was able to give them something, he would cry. He would have a whole fit because he was not able to help the person who was homeless. For him, that was a burden on his heart. And that's, for some of you, you have a burden too. Maybe when you hear about someone who has gone through a divorce, or who's experienced a miscarriage, or is carrying the shame of an abortion, or maybe they've gone through a health issue like breast cancer, or whatever trauma or drama they've gone through. Tell me, and I would love to see in the comments, what burden do you have? What is the thing that when you hear about it, you just is like, I'm not okay with that. Sis, maybe that is where God is leading you to build your ministry. But beyond just the burden, I often like to say, I want you to think about who is your tribe. Like, who is like the audience of people who you feel most connected to. Think about yourself maybe 5 to 10 years ago. Do you want to help the younger version of yourself? That's right, Joyful Noise. That's the question. What cause burdens you? Do you want to help the young girl that once was you? And you're like, man, back in the day, I didn't have a mentoring program, but it's needed. And I want to be the one to start that. Maybe it's when you had gone through a loss of a spouse and they passed away unexpectedly, or maybe you lost a child and you know the pain of that. Think about what cause burdens you, and maybe there was an issue that happened that you didn't have to support, but now you could be the person who offers that answer. So those are some things I want you to consider as you are discerning. Okay, is it a burden? Is it a need that I see that hasn't been answered? Maybe it's something where it's just a passion that you have. Like, it's not doesn't seem like work to you when you're serving in this capacity. It's a joy. Maybe that is a direction that you want to lean into as you're discerning your next steps as relates to ministry. So that's That's my answer to question number one. Question number two, what if I have multiple gifts? Many of you sisters are very talented. You maybe speak, coaching, writing. And so you don't know which one to focus on first. How many people also feel like this is you? Like you have a lot of different things that you can do. And I'm loving the comments in the chat. Miss Griggs, young women, single mothers who have been homeless with children, raising athletes. Okay, good stuff. I love this. Okay. All right. And then we got Darnisha, Calvin, what do you do when you have four things? Domestic violence, trafficking, women. Okay, good question. Okay, so I'm gonna come to this. These are questions. All right, so when it comes to different directions that you can go into with your ministry and focus, I want you to ask God to show you what is in season. That's the first thing. Because sometimes God gives us a vision. I don't know how many visionaries we have here. I constantly get like the visions. I'm like, yes, God, I want to do this. Yes, God, I want to do that. I have a little bit of like squirrel action going on, like squirrel all over the place. And I'd say, Jocelyn, like I wish I had it here. I'll show it to you all next week. I have my ministry launch planner. Is available for purchase at sisterstartyourministry.com. And in my ministry launch planner, I literally have a section that says maybe later for me to jot down all the ideas that God has given me for my ministry. Because sometimes the downloads, like I want to do this for domestic violence survivors. I want to help women with their healing mission. I want to do this. I want to do some stuff is for down the road, but it's not necessarily in season. And if we try to do too much at the same time, what happens is we are spinning so many plates. We're spinning this plate of trying to start this ministry. We're spinning this plate of trying to write our book. We're spinning this plate of trying to start this podcast. And while we're trying to spin this plate, and then we get sidetracked and we got this plate going on. Before we know it, this plate falling on the side. This plate barely got going. And we're wondering why we don't get anything done. Sisters, you got some squirrel action. You're squirreling. Who's squirreling over here? Who am I talking about right now? All over the place. I know. You need to make that maybe later list that I'm telling you about. Go ahead, sis, because we can't be all over the place. We got to focus in. Now, for some of you, going back to the question, I'm going to bring that question up. Multiple gifts, speaking, coaching, and writing. I would say if you're falling in this ballpark, maybe you do want to be a speaker or a teacher, but you like to write, you have a book in mind. I actually suggest that you start with the book first. Why? Why do I say that? Because the root word of authority is author. And when you want to establish yourself as an authority in whatever field you're entering into, having your book written helps to just have something to say. Like it shows that you have put thought into documenting your framework. You've done the work, you've done the research. It gives you a level of authority in that space to say you've written a book on this topic. And so with that, when you are thinking about becoming a coach or speaking, if you have your framework documented in a book, framework is another way of saying your process, your methodology, your view on whatever topic, you have it documented in your book, then that book has your framework for your curriculum, your course. That book has your framework for your speaking. That book has your framework for what you're going to coach women on. It's the same stuff you're teaching, but just in different formats. You get what I'm saying? You can use what you put in this book, because this is exactly what I'm doing. Shameless plug, sisterstartyourministry.com. Get your copy of the book. I put in my book my framework, which is the ministry development cycle, where I talk about the process of discerning your call, equipping yourself for ministry, planning, and then implementation. And I walk sisters through my framework to help them to build their ministry. So I want you to think about, like, is there a process in mind that you have? Is there a framework? Anything that God has called us to do, it has to be created by someone, right? And we are creative beings. So for you, God might have this idea, this method, this way of approaching a problem that's unique for you to execute. And so how can you possibly take that out into the marketplace in the form of a book that could be then remixed or used in coaching, online courses? Maybe again, it could be you speaking, podcast. Again, I don't know who I'm talking to right now, but if any of you who are watching this, I see Michelle has written her first book, but anyone else who you want to be a coach, you want to be an author, you want to be a speaker, you want to have an online ministry, a podcast host, let me know who you are. And I want you to think about what is your method of doing so. So regardless of what God is calling you to in this season, I want you to be prayerful and ask God, okay, what is in season? Because if you try to do something out of season, it won't harvest, right? It's like expecting for you to plant a seed right now, and then tomorrow it's a full-blown tree or full-blown plant or full-blown whatever you have planted. It don't work like that. That's not science, right? So in sometimes in our life, God will give us a seed, a vision, and he's saying, okay, I'm showing you, I'm giving you a glimpse, just like he gave Joseph a glimpse. He gave him a vision of him having his brothers and families bound down before him. And Joseph prematurely went out here telling his brothers, hey, you gonna be bound down before me. And y'all know the story. Then the brothers was jealous, threw him in a pit, all the crazy stuff. He had to go through a whole lot of stuff to get to the point where it was actually the time in which that would take place. So don't get confused. Sometimes the vision is something that God is showing us, okay, this is happening for you 10 years down the road. I'm building you towards that, but you still have to be matured. You have to be cultivated. You have to learn and grow and equip yourself before this manifests. So what is the first step? Now, I see in the chat, I'm going to let you know how to purchase my book. You can go to sisterstartyourministry.com to purchase my book. I'm going to put that on the screen. sisterstartyourministry.com to purchase my book. I actually have a workbook for you. You can buy a bundle. It's a workbook planner, that ministry planner to help you get your ideas together, your focus. And there's also a journal. So either buy the bundle or just buy the book, whatever you prefer. But that book is really going to help you in discerning your next steps. And so, yes, ladies, I want you to focus on what is in season, and then capture all those amazing ideas, still capture them, but put them on the maybe later list for what God is going to do for you some point down the road. Now, this next question, this question, y'all, I hope you got your pen and pad for this. I know for some of us, we feel called to build a purpose-driven kingdom business. Now, it's still a ministry, but it's in the format of a business. Maybe, again, if you're called to speak, if you're called to be a coach, if you're called to maybe have a healing ministry, maybe a Christian counselor, you're called to build a kingdom business that glorifies God, but you feel guilty about charging for your ministry work. How do I know when it's okay to be paid for what I do? Does anybody here really struggle with this? Oh, yeah, Michelle says, that's me. I feel guilty about charging for my work. Michelle, I understand, sis. I felt guilty too. Like, this is coming from someone who literally worked full time at her church for over a decade. I mean, I volunteer, worked overtime. I mean, I did so much for free. And here, don't get me wrong. We do volunteer. We do give of our time. There's nothing wrong with that. It's a beautiful thing. But I also want you to understand that for us to be able to build a kingdom business, it requires resources in order for us to be able to sustain the ministry that God has put on our heart. Because if you don't have financial resources flowing through your business, it's not going to last. And you won't have the resources necessary to be able to support the mission, because your dollars have a mission to it. So I know that many of us struggle with this, and I did too. But I had to learn, especially because I left my job to do my work in ministry full time. And I know for some of you, you desire to do that. I could not say to ComEd, I'm just volunteering my time, 40 hours a week. I'm sorry, I can't pay you. No, they wanted their money, right? So we have to look at this. So when we think about scripture, 1 Timothy 5:17-18, it says the elders who direct the affairs of the church well are worthy of double honor, especially those whose work is preaching and teaching. For scripture says, do not minimize. It got cut off. Okay. In other words, this scripture, go look it up. It's speaking about how we should take care of the people who are doing this work. And just because, sister, you are a Christian author, you're a Christian speaker, you are a Christian life coach, it does not mean that your work is cheap. And it does not mean that your work is not valuable. No, your work is valuable. And I want you to think about the years of time that you put in getting your education, or the experience that you have, the transformation that you'll offer people through what you do. Nothing's cheap about that. It's valuable. But for whatever reason, you feel guilty about charging. But in order for you to be able to offer a quality product, again, it requires resources so that you can fulfill what you're offering. But whatever you're selling or offering people, when I say selling, I look at selling as service, especially when we do it from a place of integrity. And I know you all are offering what you're doing from a place of integrity because all you want to do is help and serve people. And so when we look at selling as service, and I'm selling this to you, first of all, because if it was free, a lot of times people take free stuff and they don't really value it. It's kind of like, if I join, how many of us have joined a health club, like $10, Planet Fitness or whatever place, $10 a month is like, yeah, like I'll get to the gym next week. Next week is next month. Next month is next year. Like it's just on auto payment. It's like, I don't really care about that $10 a month. It don't really hurt me none. But let me ask you something, sister. If you paid for a personal trainer, $500 a month, do you think you're gonna be up in that gym 5 a.m.? What we doing? We doing some squats? What I got some dumbbells. I'm ready. I'm ready, right? Like I'm sure. It's a whole nother conversation. When you put the money in, you showing up. So when it comes to what we're offering people, what we're offering is valuable. And sometimes people need to invest and have some skin in the game so they can take what you're offering seriously and show up for themselves. There's this quote, I don't know who originated it, but they say when people pay, they pay attention. When people pay, they pay attention. And so for you, it's not only them paying you, they're actually investing in themselves for the outcome that they desire and for the transformation that you're going to bring them. But sister, understand, you are worth it and you are not cheap. So stop undervaluing yourself. Now, I do talk about this quite a bit at my masterclass. I'm going to put the link in the chat. If you have not showed up to my live masterclass yet, you need to. You need to. We spent an hour together where I'm talking about different business principles and things to help you to scale and grow your ministry. It's free masterclass, revjocelyn.com/masterclass. You can join that, spend time. Sisters come together weekly from across the country where I talk about growing and scaling your ministry. Okay, so do check that out if you have not already. Also, I do want to remind you to subscribe if you're just now tuning in so you can see this week after week. We're going to be here every week, sisters. I'm showing up because I'm teaching and I'm hoping you're enjoying this first episode. I'm so glad we've spent the time together. And again, if you have questions, then remember to go to revjocelyn.com/questions and submit your questions so I can answer them for you, because I want to address any of your concerns so we can help you to step out and answer that call. One other quick announcement I want to make is that we have our annual ministry launch conference. Now, this ministry launch conference is January 23rd and 24th. It's virtual. I am bringing speakers together from across the country, some international, including Dr. Michelle McKinney-Hammond, who I talked about earlier. She's going to be one of our speakers. She's going to be on stage, virtual stage, with the Queen of Funding. We're going to have someone talking about using AI to grow your ministry. We're going to be talking about how to fund your ministry. We got so many good things in place, and tickets for this goes up at the end of the week. So I'm telling you, if you are really, dead serious about growing your ministry in 2026, you want to be at this conference. It's full day, so you're going to have to take off work on the 23rd, and it's the 24th again. But visit ministrylaunchconference.com to get your tickets, because sis, you want to be in the room. Okay, so again, I hit you with a couple things as we close out for today, sisters. I want you to know that I am so here for you. I'm so here for you. I want nothing more than to help you to actualize the vision that God has put on your heart. So I'm going to do everything I can week after week to connect you, to plug you into resources to help you grow and answer that call to ministry. So remember, again, subscribe on all my channels at Rev Jocelyn on IG, Facebook, YouTube, LinkedIn. I'm pushing out goodies left and right for you to help you to do what God has called you to do. If you have not checked out my weekly masterclass, join me again. You can join me every week at revjocelyn.com/masterclass. That's free. We'll spend time together helping you to grow your ministry and answer that call. And sister, I'm going to see you next week. All of my beautiful sisters as Lawson, Miss Carter, Dernisha, Charlotte, Miss Griggs, Shamia Carter, everybody. Leverage, I'm so glad that you're here. Michelle, I'm sorry if I missed your name, but thank you for being here today. I'll see you next week at 6:30 Central for another Sister Start Your Ministry Hour. And you have a great, blessed rest of your evening, sister. God bless you. Good night, everyone. Thank you for being here.